debt to a certain extent brings in discipline. For ventures where you're only doing working capital or you're building up a capex, if you take debt with a certain cost and repayment metrics, it also brings in discipline in your teams to ensure that those cash flows are which they project are very accurate. I am Souvik. I'm one of the founders at Infra Market. We run a building material platform, and the vision is to build out a comprehensive building materials solution for all construction and real estate companies in India. As a B2B platform, I think one of the critical things that we needed to understand was, so every company in India, whether it's a B2C or B2B, will have initially some burn which they will have, and they need to fund that burn to eventually see growth, because you don't get to unit economics at day zero. That burn for B2C companies typically is only operating burn, in the sense revenue cost burns. But for B2B companies, there is the additional cost of working capital burn. And more importantly, you may need to do some capex for manufacturing products or building supply chain. In those situations, we felt that going and raising equity every time to try and fund working capital and capex would be very inefficient, because ideally they should get funded out of debt. Debt to a certain extent brings in discipline. Yes, for certain things, risk ventures, equity should be raised. But for ventures where you're only doing working capital or you're building up a capex, if you take debt with a certain cost and repayment metrics, it also brings in discipline in your teams to ensure that those cash flows are which they project are very accurate. One of the largest private banks we have today has like a 500 crore exposure on us. The first time they came, one was Yubi got them for 10 crore limit. This is 2020, 2021. This is during COVID, when equity funding was dry. We realized that we can't depend on equity funding, we need to go more debt. And I remember Yubi working with us to get at least 5-6 banks on board. At that time, they took very small limits, they took 10 crore, 12 crore each. But today, some of those banks have like a 500 to 600 crore, because they've seen the business grow over the next few years. So I think majority of the banks that we have, majority of the debt that we have on the books has come through partnerships that Yubi has built. Overall, whenever we worked with whenever I've worked with Yubi or whatever interactions have been with Gaurav, the one thing that has sort of stood out is the ability is to sort of give me a year, 2 year vision of where this will end up. The understanding of why we are doing something, and it was not transactional. In most cases where we work with other service providers in this similar space, is more transactional. Let's do this transaction and this is what you get out of, this is what we get out of it, closed, right? But with Yubi, it was more long-term strategic, where Gaurav always explained to us that, look, today you're taking a 10 crore debt, when you raise 1,000 crore equity, it may seem non-consequential. But eventually, if you want to build your business and build an X amount of debt capital, these are the banks who will support you when they get trust in you, when they've seen you for 3-4 years. I think that is the one difference between Yubi and most of the platform system. They are trying to go beyond the transactional and understand the entire debt stack of the company, entire roadmap of the company around debt, and sort of understand what we can do today will eventually help you achieve your entire overall debt goals in sort of maybe a couple of years to come. I think that is unique to what at least the platform in that sense.